So welcome to episode 23 of Level Up, 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions and votes really do drive the show. Just click on the link in the chat and go over to Slido, which is where you can vote up the questions that you would most like answered. And of course, you can add your own there as well. Today, we're talking about project management and change management, and with a particular focus on the role of the program manager. We'll come on to talk more about that in a little while. Let's jump straight in and meet our panel for today. Everybody is a returning panelist today, so welcome back, panel. We'll begin with Shontelle Bryan. She's Managing Director and Lead Trainer at Change Consult, helping senior leaders in organisations realise their vision for their change. Welcome, Shontelle.
Thank you, Nick. It's a pleasure to be here again to talk about change management, which is my forte. So thank you for having me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Next over to Yogyata. She works in the semiconductor industry and has been on the panel for our very first Asia Pacific show, actually, which was back in September, and makes her third appearance today. She shares her experience in managing change across the supply chain. Welcome, Yogyata.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for inviting me again.
Okay, perfect. Raj Khanna makes a second appearance with us, and today he'll be sharing his more than 25 years of experience in projects, program and change management. Hi again, Raj. Welcome back.
Thank you very much, Nick. And having done the first one, really looking forward to the second one today. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Ramani is the founder of GRT Consulting and specialises in project, program and portfolio management, change and benefits realisation. A true professional of the PPM world, Ramani is the author of the Improving Business Performance, a project portfolio management approach. So welcome, Ramani. Great to see you.
Thank you, Nick. It has been my pleasure to be here. And change is one of my passion, and I have managed multiple projects, programs, and portfolio. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And completing our panel for today is Patrick von Schlag from the Deep Creek Centre. He's worked with more than 400 organisations around the world to adopt best practice frameworks. It's great to see you again, Patrick. How are you? Welcome back.
I'm doing well, thanks, Nick. It's a privilege to be here and with the rest of the panelists.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. Now, look, if you're watching this and you feel that you can answer some of these questions, then just volunteer in the chat and we'll be in touch to onboard you and welcome you to the Level Up panelist group. So let's jump straight over and hear from our question master for today, who is Charlotte, and she's joining us from the Thames Valley in the UK. Charlotte, may we have the first question, please?
You can. We've got a question from Hans in Utrecht, Netherlands. How does change management apply to department and unit heads? In other words, people within an organisation that are not specifically change managers.
Okay, Patrick, then Shontelle.
So first, I would suggest that successful change requires a broad array of leadership across an organization. Your teams are going to be looking to you as a change agent to help drive the success of that change. So any successful change manager will actively welcome the buy-in of the influencers within the organization.
Okay, thank you, Shontelle, and then Raj.
Just to add to that, there is a quote in the foundation course that says that employees like to hear about change from two individuals, the project sponsor as well as their line manager. So it's really important that line managers understand the change, that they understand what it means for them, they understand what it means for their department, and they're also able to communicate that change to their staff. They need to buy into the change because it's very important that they show that they're on board so that their staff could be on board as well. So it is really important for line managers and managers to be involved in the change because it is really important, and that's how their staff can therefore adopt it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Raj and then Yogyata.
There is a saying we had in the National Health Service, which has been around for a long time, which is quite simply, nothing about you without you. And therefore, if we're going to make a change in any organizational departments, any business units, it is absolutely crucial that this role, referred to earlier by our colleagues as line management, but also referred to as a business change manager. So we really need to involve them right from day zero, because their responsibility is to identify the benefits, measure the benefits, communicate to their staff. So really, they should be involved right at the very beginning.
Good points. Yogyata?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with the rest of the panelists here. But I also feel that you really need to involve the audiences, especially the line managers on the early stage, so that they know what's in it for them and they can explain it to the rest of the team as well, so that you have kind of an early adopters for the change, which can influence the rest of the team.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of influence is really strongly held, depending on the organization and how hierarchical it is. Ramani, what's your experience in this?
In my experience, we need to consider 3 layers of management: top management, middle management, and line management. Some of them could be resistant to change, some of them could be positive to change. And depending upon the context, the change context can be very different. I've seen many organizations where top management was very enthused about change, even the line management. But middle management was absorbing the change. They're acting like a barrier to change. It becomes a very difficult phenomenon. So it's a more context sensitive situation. We need to apply and look at the situation from the top, middle, as well as the line management to take what is the appropriate solution that we provide.
Yeah, thank you very much. And if you're working in a very, traditional organization, relying on cascade alone is unlikely to be a successful communication strategy if you need to move at pace and at scale. So perhaps that's something that we might return to in a little while, panel. But great opening question. Thank you very much, Charlotte. Let's move on, please.
We've got a live question, Nick. Unfortunately, I don't have their name. They ask, What is the difference between project management and agile project management?
All right. Okay. So this is all about the context, isn't it? Managing projects in one environment and another. So let's kick off first, if we might. Raj, I'll come to you first.
Agile project management, I like you to think about the word as incremental. So we have 2 ways of delivering any solution. Either we do it in a waterfall way, which is all at once, or agile, which is incremental. You will see people asking waterfall versus agile. There's not a competition between the two. We have to look at each change initiative, the context of what you're delivering, and then decide whether it's waterfall or incremental. And just a very quick example, if you're going to a restaurant for a meal, and if you've never been to that restaurant before, you would order you should order your food incrementally, because you don't know what the portion size is, etc. But if you've been to a restaurant several times and you've done it before, then the waterfall approach would work just as well. So they're the 2 that we would talk about.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you very much. I've never been confident enough to do that personally in a restaurant, but I might think about that. Patrick, your thoughts, please.
So one of the interesting things that Agile does for us is give us the freedom to acknowledge that at the beginning of a project, we don't always know all of the things that we will know as we progress our way through the project. So I like to describe the whole idea of bringing an Agile mindset to a project as just acknowledging that what we know at the beginning isn't in fact exactly right. And so part of what we're giving ourselves permission to do is to learn and adapt as we gain better knowledge about the problems we're trying to solve and the nature of the solutions we're trying to provide.
Thank you. And Ramani?
If you look at traditional project management and agile project management, the biggest change I see is divide and conquer. Instead of looking at the big chunk, look at the increment and see what needs to be done. And I would also like to add, when people go to agile project management, it actually calls for a change in the mindset, right? The change management is most applicable in the agile project management mindset, where most of the people are very attuned to traditional waterfall project management. So I would say agile project management is gaining popularity, and it's more useful for business communities, not only for IT but also for non-IT. It's gaining too much. It's gaining popularity.
I mean, I agree with everything that you've said there, panel. Thank you. I would also consider the context, the industry, the regulatory environment that you're working in. And the very best project managers, in my mind, always adapt. They always adapt the methods and the tools and the approach that they use, to fit the given situation at the time. And that's what turns the science into the art form. And it's the art form that generally lifts everybody up and through whatever the challenges are ahead. So very good. Great answers. Thank you very much. Charlotte, I can see the questions are stacking up. So let's move on to the next question, please.
I have a question from James, London, UK. Why is change management gaining more popularity now?
Okay, Shontelle.
I would say prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, change management started to gain popularity because senior management realized that they were not getting a return of investment on the projects that were implemented. And that was mostly due to the fact that change management was not added to those projects. So the benefits and the adoption was not there. And that, to me, in my consultancy practice, started the big push to have change management as a part of the organization and the enterprise. But now with the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm also seeing a bigger push for change management expertise within the organization or for change management consultants. And that's because senior management is realizing that this is something that's not going to go away. Change is inevitable and they need to jump on board, and that this expertise is really needed within the organization. So the COVID-19 pandemic has increased the push. And one of the points I want to make is that there has been increased research within the field of change management. Now, we know change management is a developing field. It contains concepts such as human resources, anthropology, sociology, psychology, as well as neuroscience, which has blown up over the last 4 to 5 years. So we're now seeing lots of research happening within the field, and it is helping it to gain more popularity as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Patrick, and then Raj.
So one of the reasons it's growing so quickly right now is that many organizations looking at project performance see that they are actually not getting the returns they wanted, not because the projects didn't produce the deliverables that were intended, but because they didn't win the hearts and minds of their people. Now, generally speaking, most people are resistant to change, even very good changes. Better the devil you know, if you will. And so part of the success model for any project or program, for any level of digital transformation, is to make sure, as we had spoken about before, and I think Raj described NHS as not making changes without you. Right, bringing people along, engaging them, and getting the buy-in and commitment from the stakeholders becomes so central to the success of any of these initiatives. Doing that requires a different level of commitment to organizational change.
Okay, thank you. And Raj?
It's simply people have started to recognize the value of what change management actually means. So for me, it's about transition, not just change. Change is simply changing A to B. However, what we must consider is the psychology of change. How do we get people to move over from the old way of working to the new way of working? And unless we do that, we're not going to deliver value, as Shontelle says earlier. So it's simple answer, my view is leadership have started to recognize that we have to deal with the human side of organizational change. And that's really what the change management is all about.
Okay, thank you, Yogyata.
Yeah, I think personally that we are living in a world wherein everything is changing constantly. Every single day there is something new coming up, and people have to deal with it. And I think change management is like one of the key success to transit from point A to point B, like Raj said. And I think that is also one of the reason why change management is kind of gaining a lot popularity recently.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, change management is a discipline which has been around for a very long time. When I started my consulting career in the 1990s, it was unusual to have somebody whose primary responsibility was organizational change. Okay, it came in different labels, but at that stage it was unusual. But that was 30 years ago, and I think what we're seeing now is that if you blink, you miss out. So we have to bring people with us at the speed of light, as we're doing this stuff, because otherwise we just get overtaken by events or by our competitors, whoever they may be. So really, really important, and a great question. So thank you very much indeed for that one. Charlotte, let's move on to the next question, please.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a question from a live viewer, Michael. I've been tasked with implementing Agile in a HR startup. As both myself and the staff are quite inexperienced, how would you recommend I proceed? I was thinking of studying AgilePM.
Okay, well, find yourself a mentor. There's plenty available on the panel. Raj, let's kick off with your thoughts, please.
Absolutely. Thank you for your call. Have a look on the APMG website for accredited providers. We are one of them, and we love to hear from you. And it's really about understanding, as Ramani said, Agile incremental approach is a different mindset rather than necessarily a different skill set. So find yourself a good provider, understand how the principles of incremental not only apply to what we do at work, but also at home. The world is talking about it. I know our Prime Minister, when we came out of a lockdown, said we are going to come out slowly, step by step. These are all the words that are an incremental approach. So that's what you need to think about. How can we deliver it incrementally? And please find yourself a good training provider and get some initial understanding of Agile and incremental.
Okay, thanks, Ramani.
Good. I think as Raj was talking about, we conduct a lot of AgilePM workshops. What we see is a lot of people come from non-IT background, HR, finance, procurement, etc. So what we see is AgilePM has got great applicability for Agile projects outside the IT purview, where Scrum, etc. are going on. So I would request that you please find a good AgilePM provider. And the model is so robust and so nice that it is applicable for all types of businesses, IT, non-IT, whatever we are doing. It should be able to put you in the Agile board.
Okay, thank you very much. One thing that I would suggest is a little unclear what kind of organization it is as an HR startup. If you're specializing in delivering HR services to third-party organizations, I would really strongly recommend that you look at a development plan for your HR consultants as they're going out into the field, so that they have a good grounding and understanding of both Agile disciplines and also some of the change disciplines that we've been talking about, because that is their guardian, that is their shield, and that will enable them, if you like, to be able to understand the client situation and add some value from the very earliest of days. And in a startup, you don't have a strong brand to trade on. You just have your people. So it's super important that they add value on day one. Next question, please, Charlotte. And a great question. Thank you very much indeed, Michael, for putting that into the panel.
We have a question from Deepak, Bangalore, India. Who is a change agent, and how is the role of a change agent different from that of a change manager?
Okay, so the concept of an agent for change. Shontelle, start us off on this.
All right. So a change agent is an ordinary person within an organization who is basically an advocate for the change. So they have bought into it, and their role is to help their colleagues to buy into the change as well. So these individuals would typically have great communication and influencing skills. And their role is to understand what the change is about and be able to bring their colleagues along with them. So the change agent would typically still report to their manager or supervisor. This is just an additional role that they would take on for a particular project or initiative. But in contrast, a change manager, this is an individual that specializes in change management. So they would typically have a certification, for example, the APMG International Change Management Foundation and Practitioner certification. So they would be certified and they would have all the knowledge, tools, and tactics to be able to implement change within an organization. So this is the specialist. These individuals work with senior management, line managers, in order to handle resistance. They do things like communications plan, stakeholder and impact analysis, etc., and basically come up with tactics for making the change successful. So the change manager is the specialist, and the change agent is the advocate, the ordinary person in the organization. The change manager can also work with change agents to help them with their role. For example, in my practice, when I'm working as a consultant, I would meet with change agents on a bi-monthly basis to find out how they're doing, what's working, what's not working, what are some of the challenges they're facing. So there's also a bit of consultancy and coaching that the change manager as the specialist can do with the change agent.
Okay, thank you very much. Comprehensive answer there. Raj, just really super briefly, is there anything else that you want to add to that? Do you feel that Chontelle's covered the
I think she's covered it for now. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much indeed. Very good. We may well come back to the change agent a little bit later on. Charlotte, can we have the next question, please? And panel, we need to pick up the pace now. There's a lot of questions stacking up.
So we have a question from Ruth, Cornwall, UK. Why change management is critical for successful program management?
Okay, Patrick, kick us off then, Ramani.
So I would summarize that the biggest important reason why change management is so critical for program management is that program management is about business transformation and outcomes. Business transformation is not just about how the practice changes or how the technology changes, but engages roles and responsibilities, organizational culture. And so it requires a much more holistic, people-centered approach to be able to create sustainable, successful change.
Okay, thank you, Ramani.
If you look at program management, this is where what we call the tire hits the road, right? Where actually the benefits are coming, the business units are changing. Projects may do well, but unless the change is managed properly, benefits and outcomes would not come appropriately. That's why I would think that change management is much more critical in a program environment rather than even a project management, where it actually hits the business units.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much indeed. Next question, please, Charlotte.
Question from Jennifer, London, UK. What is the difference between program and portfolio management?
Okay, all right. So this is getting an even bigger can of worms. Raj, what is the difference then?
We talk about 3 Ps: portfolio, programs, and projects. As you asked the question between program and portfolio, personally, I like to see portfolio at a corporate level. So I like to talk about a corporate portfolio management. So portfolio is at the organization level that covers all the programs, all the projects, and any other change initiatives that may also be taking place. So centrally within the business, I need to know every single change. And that is why there should be a central corporate portfolio management office.
Okay, thank you, Ramani.
Apart from what Raj said, if you look at portfolio management, this is the closest to business, closest to strategy, and closest to the business. Whereas if you look at the program management, it works under the portfolio management. You can think portfolio management is a collection of, managing various diverse types of programs and projects. And it's much more challenging as compared to just managing programs. So it's at a much higher level, closer to the business and the strategy, the portfolio management.
Thank you. And I think it's fair to say that, although I'm not a specialist in this area, a number of people have said to me is that it depends really on the guide that you read. There is no objective hard boundary between these three groups, projects and programs. It's clearer, I think. Between programs and portfolios, a little less clear, a little bit more subtle. So it's a great guidance from very experienced colleagues on the panel. And I would suggest, go and have a look, have a read of different guides, around the program and portfolio area and see what might be applicable in your own situation. Very good. Charlotte, next question, please.
We've had a question just come in, Julie Rose. How do you avoid it feeling like a consultation when you're talking to a change agent?
Fantastic question. Change agents are really there to act as the catalyst, and they're using a whole variety of different tools and techniques in their, in their kind of plan, if you like, to try and help you embrace that change and move with it. Raj, what would you say? How do you turn that round so that it doesn't feel if you like, that like a cookie cutter approach is just being applied to you all the time?
Yeah, I think the key point is, what is consultation, what is engagement? And it feels sometimes we talk about consultation when the decision has been made and somebody's coming to say to you, we talk about within the local government, if we're doing consultation with the public. Well, in that case, all we're saying to the public is this decision has been made and we're going to come and tell you about it a little bit and answer some questions. Whereas a true engagement event should be before the decision has actually been made. So now we're coming to ask you, saying these are the problems and how can we work together to resolve the problem? And that's really, I can see why you feel that way, Julie. That consultation means being talked down to, as opposed to engagement, being talked with.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Patrick.
So one of the opportunities that this kind of presents is if an organization establishes a vision for a desired end that they're trying to achieve, if you engage your change agents as part of how do we get there, what else should we be doing that we're not thinking about, how do we help identify potential roadblocks, challenges, are there other things that we're not thinking about that we need to be thinking about in order to help us successfully solve the problem? You're empowering these change agents to fully be an integrated part of solving the problem together, instead of being on the receiving end of a dictate. And so, part of the success model has to be, how do we create the buy-in and the commitment among the key influencers within the organization so that other people will take their cues from that group?
Okay, thank you very much. I would say, if you can coach your change agents, and help them understand that, sometimes change doesn't need selling, it just needs explaining. And, that can completely alter the dynamic of that conversation and allow it to feel much more natural, much easier. The very best change agents are the people that just talk from the heart. So good, very good. Charlotte, next question, please.
Question from Sarah, Cape Town, South Africa. What are the typical characteristics to look for in a program manager?
Okay, characteristics of a good program manager then. Raj, and then Patrick.
It's interesting because it's the difference between, what's the difference between a program manager and a project manager is a key point I think you're trying to ask. See, a program manager is somebody who can probably deal with uncertainty, whereas a project manager is somebody who wants to deal with certainty. And a program manager, you're trying to clear the fog, and behind which the project managers come and deliver. And sometimes it's based on your personality type. So if you go back to traditional Myers-Briggs, you have people who are sensing, who prefer facts, as opposed to people who are intuitive, who prefer abstract information. Similarly, judging seek closure, whereas perceiving seek openness. So it's about your personality. What kind of environment do you prefer? And does it make one person better than the other? In my opinion, not. It just what kind of situations you prefer and deal with uncertainty. That to me is one of the major challenges of being a program manager, because programs can be very open and flexible.
Okay, thank you very much. And Patrick?
Raj, I really liked what you had to say there. Program managers have to become much more immersed in how and why the projects that compose the program will facilitate the outcomes and results that the organization is trying to achieve. And so program managers have to be much more hands dirty in understanding the nature of how the work gets done, how the business processes, people, roles, and responsibilities work collaboratively to facilitate value streams for the organization, and how the relevant pieces of the project work together or potentially may not work together to produce the intended results. But to what Raj said, I think really where bears repeating, it is about dealing with all of the uncertainty inherent in how the projects produce the outcomes and the results, and helping to coordinate and collaborate across all those stakeholders.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Some great answers there. Hopefully that has signposted very well for us. We're going to change gears now a little bit and move into more of an in-depth discussion. I'm going to invite Raj to join me for the focus topic, where we explore a little bit further the role of the program manager as identified there. So, Raj, program managers generally are coordinating that management of projects and some of the business as usual. So they're all contextualized together. The projects they're managing are related in some degree or another to achieve beneficial change. What would you say is the key difference in how we might go about managing a program versus managing those individual projects?
Traditionally, Nick, I would say organizations have had this view that when you first start as a junior member, you are sent on a project management training course. And when you grow up, we'll send you on a program management training course. And I believe we need to start thinking differently today. Because if you look at today, the Praxis framework talks about integrated program and project management. And everything that we do in a project, we should do in a program. And everything we do in a program, we need to do in a project. So how we manage it should not be any difference. The only difference is the level of governance. So if you're going to manage a program, we have a program board with several project boards. And if we manage something as a very large projects, we simply have a project board. So there is a level of governance. But everything else like benefits management, stakeholder engagement, risk management, it's exactly the same. So what we should be doing today is sending people on the same course together as a team, and therefore Praxis framework sits in very, very well. And somebody who could be very young in age will make a superb program manager. And for me, I have two very good examples, if I could share with you just quickly. One is Malala Yousafzai. At the age of 16, she won the Nobel Peace Prize. If we'd gone on to the traditional way of how we see programs and projects, she would never have got it. She's too young. She's not experienced enough. And the other one, which is actually happening in the world today, the COP26, we have Greta Thunberg. At the age of 16, she's challenging the world leaders. And therefore, we should provide the same training for both. And depending on their personality type, as we talked earlier in the question, do they become program managers or do they become project managers? At my age, you can see with my gray hair, I would still like to deal as a project manager because I like certainty in my life. So I don't think we should be managing them too differently. We should be doing the same.
All right, thank you. And just for those of you who may not be familiar, praxisframework.org is the website to go and visit, so that you can find out a little bit more about that and put some of Raj's comments into context kind of there. So let's move from then the kind of the differences there to a course, if you like. How would you chart a course? So you've talked about sending colleagues together on the same kind of training so that they can work together and act together and understand together. How would you go about charting a course to become a program manager as part of your career?
Well, first of all, it's what organizations are looking for is, if you're doing a program, it can be much wider. So do you have the capability? That's the key word we should look at. And do you have the competency? And the third, do you have the willingness? And so if you believe you have those, the best route, of course, is, like we talked about Agile incremental approach earlier, is find yourself a reputable training provider who can help you understand the value of programs and projects integrated in the form of using the Praxis framework. Get your qualification, and then it's demonstrating your experience, your competence at an interview. So whether you go for a program manager, and I do believe some very younger people will make excellent program managers, and we shouldn't disallow them because of their age or years of experience. But it's
Absolutely.
hopefully soon. Sorry, Nick.
That's all right. Absolutely agree with that. And, getting those experiences along the way as part of your career is a great thing to do. So, if they're not available to you as part of your, current role, then look to volunteer, look to help out, look to see what you can do, to work shadow or to work alongside people who are managing programs and offer to add some value into that so that you can pick up that experience along the way. How important do you think it is, whether you're a project manager or indeed a program manager, to find in yourself the little voice, the confidence to be able to speak truth to power? Raj, how would you say, how important is that in this role?
Oh, extremely important. And I think you have to be honest in yourself as to 20 years ago, I remember when I was part of the user group, a national user group, we talked about project management. And this was at a city council up in the north. And somebody went to them and I said, I'd like a very experienced project manager who managed this very complicated project. And they said, what salary? And I mean, I just give a figure now. And he said something like 50, 60,000. And they said, oh, you mean a program manager? He said, no. I want a project manager. So I think till the human resources department start to see that a value as somebody who's an experienced project manager should be paid appropriately and should not have to be given a title of a program manager because the pay scale says so. Managing the Olympics at the project level, delivering an athletic stadium, sometimes can be extremely more complicated than managing some of the traditional programs we have. So it's about recognition from the human resources that I'm applying for a role and pay them appropriately rather than a title of a program or a project manager.
Yeah, I think you're certainly true on that, and quite correct to highlight that differential. The thing, if you're going to challenge to get more responsibility through your career, you need to just behave as though you already have it. And
absolutely,
that's a big part of this. So if you're looking for a leadership role, begin gently by situationally leading different tasks, different activities, and build on that. So last question for you, Raj, in this kind of deeper dive. From the perspective of the program manager, who would you say is really responsible for helping users transition from a kind of legacy way of working to a new way of working if they're going to deliver the benefits of a program of different activities?
The role we talked about earlier, I tend to think about saying who is operationally in charge of the business units that are going to be affected by the change. And what I'm really looking for are people who are operationally in charge of those, and they will take on the role right at the very beginning of our change initiative. And we could either refer to them as line management or a business change manager. I like the role is mentioned in Praxis framework as well. Business, the first word, very important, they come from the business area. The second word is they are responsible for making that change happen. Too often we confuse the role of a business change manager to that of a change manager. And as our panelists made it very clear earlier, Shontelle did, the change manager role is somebody who understands the change management principle very well. They understand the psychology of change and all the theory and everything that Shontelle was talking about. So a business change manager is a role. We engage with them right at the very beginning. So when the sponsor is appointed, the second person on their team should be those people from the business units. And I work a lot in the healthcare today and the police. So if I'm talking about the healthcare, if the implementation is going to involve the therapists, the nurses, and the doctors, I'm looking at 3 business change managers as a minimum, a therapy manager, a matron, and a senior doctor to be part of my team if I was a sponsor, because only they can make the change happen. I can't as a sponsor. So the program manager has to work very closely with those business change managers to make that change happen.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, thank you. Really good and interesting insights. I want to spend longer, but I know that we've got a lot of questions waiting for us with the panel. So we're going to move back to the panel view, if we can, and take the first question off the stack, which are in the room. If you're in Slido, just pop over to the Focus on the Program Manager room, okay, and add your questions in there. Off we go, Charlotte.
Question from Sean, Seattle, USA. What qualifications should I look for when hiring a program manager?
Okay, so qualifications and certifications. Raj, go ahead.
Certainly for me, Sean, I would recommend you do look at, as Nick mentioned, the Praxis Framework website. And Praxis Framework provides you with an integrated qualification in both program and project management. I've had several people from North America, from Canada recently, who've actually gone down the Praxis route. And I feel it gives you a far bigger picture. The other thing that Praxis covers that other methodologies currently don't do is the interpersonal skills, the leadership skills, negotiation skills, conflict management, team building. And so it gives you a rounded mechanism on what to do. I've been doing this for over 25 years, as Nick said earlier, doing Prince 2, managing successful programs. We still do that, but I do believe Praxis just gives you that bit of extra that those 2 methods together don't actually do.
Okay, thank you very much. The other thing that I would suggest is look at how rounded the individual is. You know, program managers do need to be, one moment, a career diplomat, you know, the next really focused change leader, the next, you know, moment they're kind of sitting, you know, trying to have a technical conversation with some pretty technical people about some pretty technical stuff. So you do need to have that, you know, kind of more open, more rounded view. And some of the very best program managers are not necessarily, you know, the folks who you might think of as marvelous project managers. So just take that into consideration. I'm sure there's more options to talk one-to-one with all of the panel, you know, if you want a bit more advice on that. So let's move on, Charlotte, and we'll take the next question, please.
We have a question from Sarah Phillipson. What advice would you give to an organization launching a new strategy that requires full program management to deliver all the different activities, but has never had a program manager before?
Okay, well, for the very fact, Sarah, that you're considering this is suggesting to me that you're going along the right lines and kind of thinking, okay, how do we organize ourselves in this rather than just kind of going down the route that you might have used previously. So I'm going to direct this question a little bit. Patrick, I'll come to you first, if I may, and then we'll go around the panel for their thoughts just to add things in.
So one thing that they want to bring to the table is to move the conversation beyond thinking about deliverables and products to thinking more holistically about people and process, roles and responsibilities, tools and techniques, collaboration with partners and suppliers, so that they're being holistic in thinking about the difference between producing products and services and facilitating outcomes and results. The organization often thinks about projects as very temporary investments of time and resource. Many times projects have very much longer term windows that require sustainable funding, sustained iterative improvements over time. And so you're trying to set the table for them to think about the longitude of the investment and the commitment that the organization is going to need to make to achieve the goals they're trying to get to in their change journey.
Okay, thank you. Raj, and then Yogyata.
I'm not trying to sell this to you, but you do need to probably have a look at that praxis framework. So there are things that you need to consider in any one of these change initiatives. So look at the kind of things you need to do. My suggestion in the first instance would be to set up something like a portfolio management office. So centrally, you can actually start to look at the overall strategy, look at each initiative, and see how those initiatives align with the overall strategy. And again, having a central portfolio management office will allow you to learn lessons and make sure those lessons are learned from previous initiatives and shared with anything future that comes along.
Yeah, thank you very much, Yogyata. You've worked in industry a long time. How does it work, in your domain when an organization wants to pivot and kind of change its strategy?
Yeah, I think I recently came across this when some of the strategies were changed from from previous to the new strategy. But I do feel that when an organization is launching a new strategy, they come they tell people or inform people about what has changed from the previous strategy to the new one and the reason why. I think people really need to know why we are doing it, because strategy is something I feel you should not change very often. But even if you're doing it, make sure you explain it to the people why you are doing it. And of course, like the rest of the panelists said, you need the portfolio, a central point where people can reach out, and all those things. But yeah, for me, explaining the reason why the new strategy is coming up, I think that is very key.
It's really insightful. Starting with why is an absolutely key part to it. The other part that I read into this question is that, it's an organization which is launching a new strategy. So that kind of implies, and I've inferred from it, that, there's BAU to be taken into account. So, often what you need to do is almost like upgrade the aeroplane while it's still flying, crawl out on the wing, swap the engines over, add the new engine, and off you go. So there's not an opportunity to stop the world for a little while and make these changes and then restart. You have to do it kind of on the fly. So really do think about that why question, organize yourselves, get a lot of input. You don't have to follow everybody's advice, but get some input. Think about those unintended consequences of going all out, on this new strategy without bringing people alongside with you first, so that when you're doing the wing walking, someone's holding on to you as well. All right, very good. Let's press on. I know that the questions are stacking up. We need to be super quick now, panel, if we're going to fit a couple more in.
We've got a question from Tanya, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. How can a successful program manager interact with a program manager and a program sponsor?
Okay, so involving sponsors, how do you really talk to sponsors, Ramani, in a nutshell? How would you go about that?
Yeah, if we look at the interaction between the program manager and the program sponsor, the program manager needs to know what are the benefits which need to come from the program. That only the program sponsor will give a big picture. What is the alignment with the strategy? And talking to the project managers, how is it to convert the program benefits into the outputs? That should be the interaction between the program managers and the project managers.
Okay, thank you
More
very
like
much.
a
Great
top
answer.
to down and bottom to top.
Yeah, absolutely right. The two need to work super close together, okay? They need to be as one. You should not be able to fit a credit card in between the two of them on the communication strategy. Charlotte, I think we can just fit one last question in for today, please.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a question from a live viewer. We're getting out of a global pandemic. In this context, how would you place the relevance of a program management to cope with upcoming challenges?
Okay, I would say it's on the rise. I really would say that's a short and sharp answer to it. Raj will go first and then Patrick.
I would simply say very, very highly, because it's changing from an old way of working to the new way of working. And that's what the global pandemic has done, changed our mindsets. And therefore, the principles of both all three program, project, and change management will apply very, very much to every single thing that we're doing different today. So absolutely very, very critical.
Okay, thank you, Patrick.
Coming out of the pandemic, a whole lot of assumptions about how and where and what the nature of work is have changed in a way that it's not going to go back. And so now program management has helped all of these organizations shift their focus from activity and deliverables to outcomes and results. And so with that shift, it's going to drive more and more focus on all of the collaborative pieces that are needed in order to facilitate a business outcome. And again, that really goes back to people. How and what is the nature of the collaboration, the roles, the alignment that will be needed to get the buy-in from your people that you'll need to make successful change.
Yeah, completely agree with that. It's all about, working together and understanding that the dynamics are moving. Everything is moving. There are so many moving parts that we're all, working with right now, that you need to have a group of people who are focused at the program level, who are able to understand those dynamics and adjust and, tune, if you like, the relevance and the effort that's put into separate projects and separate work streams along the way to deliver the maximum benefit in the shortest period of time. Well, look, very good. Thank you very much indeed, panel. You've done an absolutely great job today in getting us through what's been a very kind of fast and fairly furious set of questions. So thank you to our producers who have been out there typing the questions in and getting involved with us online. Panel, I'm going to come to you now, if I may, for your closing remarks. So Raj, we'll come to you first, and then we'll go to Yogyata.
For me, thank you very much for today. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. The thing what I would like us to just take away from this is we should stop thinking programs and projects as different entities that need to be managed differently. We need to make sure that we manage them all in the same way. And program, project, and change management should all be interlinked in dealing with any organizational change that we're going through.
Thank you, Yogyata, and then Ramani.
Yeah. Again, thanks, Nick, for inviting. Yeah, it's a pleasure to share the event with the rest of the panelists. But takeaway for this is, one, I really want to thank the audiences for putting down the questions for the event. It makes it really interesting. And I think for the program management, project management, or change, they need to work together to make it a success. You cannot have one without the other.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Ramani, and then Shontelle.
Yeah, to the current pandemic situation, more and more programs are going to be spawned up. Change management is going to be even more important in the days to come. So it's a wonderful presentation and discussion we had with the panel.
Okay, thank you very much, Shontelle, and then Patrick.
Really excellent panel today. One thing I would like persons to take away is that change management expertise is really crucial within the organization. So invest in that, or at least invest in a good change management consultant that can help you navigate change.
Thank you very much. Great answer. Patrick?
And yeah, I want to thank Nick and I want to thank the panel. It was a pleasure to be part of the program today. One thing I'd like to leave everybody with is the importance of creating effective feedback loops at all levels of your projects and programs and portfolios. Because of all of the change, because of all of the adaptation that we need to do, it's put more and more of an emphasis on awareness and our ability to be more adaptive, regardless of how we run our programs. And so emphasizing spending the time amplifying those feedback loops will help you be more successful in helping your projects achieve their goals.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Well, thank you very much, panel. Great job. We're going to move forwards now just to kind of look at what's coming next in Level Up. Early next Monday, we're going to be looking at what are we going to be looking at early next Monday? I remember what we're looking at early next Monday. We're going to be looking at the world of cyber. Thank you very much, Nigel. And cyber resilience, and with a particular focus on avoiding becoming a victim to scams. And later on in the same day, we're going to be picking up the world of public-private partnerships, and specifically looking at how you go about gaining those CP3P qualifications and how to go about studying for the ultimate level, which is the CP3P professional. So join us at those times. In the meantime, please do subscribe to the show and we'll send you a personal summary of what is coming up and how you can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. So thanks very much indeed. We'll see you on the next show. Thank you.